As the filming of Monarch: Legacy of Monsters is completed, a new Monster Wars movie will begin production in July. I believe we will watch the second season of Monarch: Legacy of Monsters this year. Since filming is already finished, if the visual effects are completed by the end of the year, we can expect to see the series in November or December at the latest, with the new movie set in the Godzilla and Kong universe starting production in July. A strong connection will be made between the series and the upcoming film. After all, when the first season of Monarch ended, Godzilla x Kong was immediately announced. Unlike the first season, Monarch: Legacy of Monsters will not focus on a distant past. The time jump at the end of the first season will show us what happened before Godzilla vs. Kong. In this video, I will talk about both the second season of Monarch and the new Monsterverse movie. While I share the latest details, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video so you won't miss upcoming content. As always, Monarch: Legacy of Monsters will be available on Apple TV+. The second season will primarily focus on Kong's story. We will see the first mechanical titans developed by Apex, and one of them will likely fight against Kong. You may already know that. Apex has built high-speed train routes between Skull Island and other stations. The skull crawlers living on Skull Island lay their eggs in Apex's facilities, and the creatures that hatch from these eggs are used to test the strength of the mechanical titans. In fact, the reason Apex wanted to reach the Hollow Earth was to gain an advantage against Godzilla. The main goal of the series is to show us the background story, giving more depth and motivation to the characters and their enemies. Despite all their technology, Apex won't even be able to defeat Kong. When they realize this, they will start to understand that they have no chance against Godzilla. In the first season, Apex had already been introduced, and we saw that Walter Simmons was leading the organization. From this, I gather that the future of the Monsterverse will feature a war between humanity's mechanical creations and kaiju. In this regard, the references made by Monarch and the movies are extremely significant. In the scene where Kong's bionic arm was introduced, they even referenced Pacific Rim by showing Gypsy Danger's arm. Since these films were produced by Warner Brothers and Legendary, Pacific Rim and Monsterverse have frequently made references to each other. For instance, even the Muto creatures introduced in the 2014 Godzilla movie were briefly shown in Pacific Rim, and Kaiju from the Toho Godzilla universe were also introduced. This raises the possibility that the new Monsterverse movie could feature a Pacific Rim crossover. However, there are some aspects that make me question this. Normally, the sequel to Godzilla and Kong is set to be released in 2027, but production is starting in July 2025. That means there's almost a 2-year gap. Typically, the production time for a standard Monsterverse film is never this long. Think about it. In 2019, they released Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and in 2020, they were set to release Godzilla vs. Kong. This suggests that the new film will be released in 2 parts. What I mean is that the Monsterverse movie coming in 2027 will be divided into Part 1 and Part 2, with a short interval between their releases. This indicates that instead of a single, small-scale film, we are dealing with a large story that requires 2 movies to tell. In such films, the first part usually ends with the protagonists being defeated, and in the second film, they return stronger. This method ensures that audiences are eager to see the continuation. Many companies use this strategy to maximize box office revenue. For example, in Avengers: Infinity War, Thanos won and wiped out half of all life in the universe. This left audiences eagerly anticipating Avengers: Endgame, which led to a record-breaking box office performance. Similarly, Avengers: Doomsday will be released in 2026 and will end in a catastrophe, making audiences desperate to see what happens in Secret Wars. Marvel is not the only company using this approach. The Fast and Furious movies have also adopted this tactic by setting up sequels with major cliffhangers. I believe this strategy will be used in the upcoming Monsterverse films as well. The Monsterverse has a massive fan base, but making them wait 2 years for a sequel could negatively impact engagement. While I'm not certain if the Pacific Rim crossover will justify splitting the film into two parts, one thing is clear. King Ghidorah's remaining heads will be merged to create Mecha-King Ghidorah. If a Pacific Rim crossover does happen, instead of using Mecha-Godzilla against Godzilla, they might introduce Mecha-King Ghidorah. In Godzilla, King of the Monsters, there was a group of people who worshipped Ghidorah as their king. If Alan Jonah and his men continue their operations independently, they will definitely seek revenge. They likely gave Apex the severed Ghidorah heads intentionally because they knew that, eventually, Ghidorah's consciousness would take over his new mechanical body. This is why Monarch, Legacy of Monsters Season 2 is so important. It will reveal how Apex obtained Ghidorah's head from Mechagodzilla. If my predictions are correct, both Monarch, Legacy of Monsters Season 2, and the upcoming movies will revolve around the emergence of Mecha-King Ghidorah. For those wondering how Pacific Rim ties into this, once Godzilla loses his status as the Alpha, Ghidorah will call all the Kaiju to the surface. Humans will be helpless, as Titans will directly attack cities. Since they cannot simply bomb these areas, they will have no choice but to deploy Jaegers to fight them. In Godzilla vs. Kong, Monarch's development of the bionic arm hinted that humanity had already started preparing for a possible Titan invasion. As I see it, in the first movie, Ghidorah will defeat Godzilla and reclaim the Alpha position. The only Titan who might resist Ghidorah is Kong. If you recall, at the end of Godzilla x Kong, even Shimo had to submit to Godzilla's dominance as the Alpha. If Godzilla loses, it's highly likely that Shimo and other Titans will switch sides and bow to Mecha-King Ghidorah. These are my predictions and thoughts about the upcoming movies and series. Based on the references given to us, I believe I've made a fair analysis. I hope you enjoyed this content. If there are any other topics you'd like to see covered, let me know in the comments. That's all for me for now. Take care and goodbye.